What's up, YouTube? Don't mind the mess under the hood. I'm doing a big job today, Injectors, so I thought I would do a how-to video. So yeah, that's what the video is going to be about. So I'm only going to be videoing the harder stuff, really. I didn't think I need to show you that. You don't need to fully take this out. I undid these and I just slid it over a bit. That's the only bolt you need to access from removing this part. So yeah, rag in here now, and then we'll move on to the injector lines. Take a 19 mil and crack all the injector lines like this, and then they'll be finger loose and you can just unscrew them. And then we work on taking up these bolts, which I believe are 10 mils. Okay, so all injector lines are now cracked. If you're gonna have any troubles with this whole project here, it's going to be on the 6-cylinder down there, just because it's so far in there. Next is taking off the fuel lines from the back of the injector pump, the VP44. So that's these ones right here. There's 6 of them, obviously, one per cylinder, and it's also 19. Okay, so I got the first 3 off the injector pump side. There goes my wrench. It's gonna be tough to get in there. All right, back to what I was saying. Those 3 are off, so now you can see this is all loose. Make sure these are off fully. It is this one here for the first 3, this one here, and that should be it. Oh, and this one here. So those 3 will take off this one. Make sure you don't lose the bolts, obviously. Slide them out and up. And that is cylinder 1, 2, and 4 on this line. Trying to not screw anything up. So there you go. It's a very important time to just inspect everything. Make sure there's nothing wrong with your injector lines, because you don't want to have to take them off once you put them back on. So you can see down there on the back of the pump, now that I got those first 3 off, these other 2 on the back side here are going to be a lot easier to get to. So once again, 19 mil, loosen those off, and then these will all pop off, and that is cylinder 3, 5, and 6. So next we're going to take off the valve cover. These bolts are 15 mil. So for the back 2 valve cover bolts, you're going to need a short socket 15 mil. A deep socket will not work back there. And once you have them all loosened, the front 4 are going to come out, and then you're going to leave the back 1 in. So basically how this valve cover comes off, you lift it all at once, and then you're going to shift it over to the left. You're going to pick it up 2 hands, one here, shift it this way, and basically you're going to kind of bend this hose here and just slide it right over top of that. Alright, that's the angle you're looking for when you're taking off the valve cover. I lifted it up at the back, pushed over this side, started angling this out. So there you have it, that's the valve cover off. Now we have access to our injectors, and for anyone wanting to do ARP head studs, this would be a good time to do that. So yeah, next step is to take out the connector tubes on the side here. I will try to do this while holding the camera. Basically just put a little screwdriver in onto one of the threads, being very careful, or maybe even use a cloth, and then just pry it out. Got a screwdriver here. Basically just go on the side. This, barely any pressure, and it easily slides out, so there's no way I'm going to break my threads on the connector tube. Easy as that. Now you just pull it out, and there you have it. That's your connector tube. So actually I decided I'm going to just do one at a time. So I'll do a connector tube and then I'll do the injector. So the injector, to get it off, this is the injector hold down right here. It's 2 8mm bolts, front and back. This front bolt here, you only need to just loosen off a bit, and this one you fully take off, because this injector hold down basically just slides under this bolt. I got the front one loosened. This one's basically off now. It is off. So as you can see, it slides out just like that. The old injector right there. To get these out, you screw in one of the valve cover bolts, because coincident it perfectly fits in here. So you just screw it in to the top. I'll show you that. Valve cover bolt, top of the injector, screws in like that. Don't need to go all the way in. Make sure there's a decent amount of threads on, and you can like put a screwdriver or something underneath. So I made sure to go right on the center of this thing right here with a screwdriver. You don't want to go on the outsides and screw that up, and then you just lightly pry up. Came up with barely any force, and here is injector number 1. Make sure the copper washer comes out with your injector, because if it doesn't, you're gonna need it and your next injector won't seal. So now you're gonna take one of your new injectors and screw that same valve cover bolt into it, and then basically install it like that. I'll show you how to do that. So there it is, screwed into the top. Just gonna add now, you're gonna grab some of the oil from the top of the valve cover and then lube this up just a little bit, because you always have to lube up your O-rings. And then make sure you take this cover off. I know that's a silly thing to say, but I mean, I'm sure someone's forgotten to take that off. And also make sure the copper washer is on the bottom. So I already put a tad of oil on the O-ring, and now you're just gonna drop it in with the connector tube hole pointing out where the connector tube hole is. Drop it in nice like that. So you're gonna want to line up this like track guide here with that bolt hole and that bolt hole, because if that's not lined up, this little guide won't slide in there. And that's how you line up perfectly with the connector tube. So I have it in there lined up. Press on the top of the bolt until you hear a pop. Like that. It should now be seated in there. But to double check, unscrew this and throw that connector hole down back on the top. Slides on there nice because everything's lined up. Throw this bolt on here. Snug it up on this side, a little bit on that side, make sure it's seated. Then we'll take the connector tube, throw it in the side. So connector tube, new O-ring, oiled up, and in the side hole, like that. Slide it in. This is after I snugged those up and backed those off a little bit. And now putting this in the side, make sure this is clean, obviously. Slide that in there. And same thing as the injector, you're gonna wait for a pop. It's gonna be hard to do with my hand on the camera, for sure. There's a pop right there. Now that the connector tube's in there, make sure it's flush, obviously, on the slide here. It should be just flush. And we heard it snap in, that means it is in there, seated. This we already tightened down once, and we're gonna tighten it down again. The torque spec for these is 89 inch-pounds. That's not foot-pounds. Foot-pound conversion, I believe, is around 8 foot-pounds, so that's barely anything. So be very careful with these, but make sure they are snug. So now that that's tightened down, all down and tight, that is one injector done. So I think the rest I'm just gonna do without filming, because that's the exact same thing all the way back. Obviously at the back it's gonna be a little more difficult because you're in a tight spot. All right, so it's the next day. Put a lot of work in last night. I believe the last step was I showed you how to do the injector and connector tube install. And after that, my camera died. I didn't do any more recording, but it was basically just finishing all the injectors for each cylinder. And then basically doing what we did to take everything apart the opposite way. So I started with my injector lines. I did the back ones first, exactly the way we took it off, but the reverse. And then I did these ones. All right, so I got everything set up the way I want it for the bleeding process, and we are now ready to do that. Leave the 1, 3, and 4 cylinders cracked. And now I'm gonna get on the key and we're gonna wait to see some fuel coming out of one of these. Okay, so as you can see, I got fuel coming out of number 1 here. I am doing this alone. I can't really video this. I couldn't set up my camera in any way. Kind of sucks. It's a cool thing to see. But yeah, there's clearly fuel coming out of this one, so I'm gonna tighten that one up fully. No fuel coming out of these, only slightly. So getting tons of fuel coming out of 3 and 4. I just tighten those up. Make sure you check your rear cylinders to make sure there's no fuel coming out of those. It's gonna start here now. She's alive. Probably won't be able to hear me. She's clearly going. Check over all of your injectors, make sure nothing's leaking. Back to the pump too. Let it idle for a bit. So I'm still letting her idle. It's been a couple of minutes. Well, actually more than that, probably 5-10 minutes. Check your fuel pressure, make sure it's up. And yeah, just keep checking for leaks. I'm gonna let it run for another 5 minutes just to make sure everything's good. So I'm gonna end the video there. Truck sounds great. Obviously, you just put the valve cover on next. I got a couple jobs ahead of me. Any of you that are worried about taking on this job, I highly suggest you drop the worry, because that was very easy to do. Very easy. It seems like a lot, but it's really not. Super quick and easy. Taking off all this side, you could literally do in 40 minutes, and then it's just the injectors and connector tubes, which take a little longer. And you want to take your time too, so you don't miss anything or screw up anything. So thanks for watching. I'll be posting some videos for sure about how these 125s hold up in this truck. Thanks for watching. Peace out.